Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff Scandridge, and I serve as the Managing Director of the Conductor. And we're proud to have you here today for our first morning Game Changers. We've been doing this for a number of years. We did it on Thursday evenings. Then we did it virtually on Thursday evenings. And we just started back a couple of months ago. We had a couple on Thursday evenings. We're going to try different times in order to meet the needs of the most people. We're trying breakfast in November. We're trying a lunchtime in December. So we appreciate you all for being here today. If you all don't know about the Conductor, I encourage you to go check us out at arconductor.org. We are a public-private partnership between the University of Central Arkansas and Startup Chapter Consulting. And we exist to inspire and empower entrepreneurs, innovators, and makers. Today we're here with Dr. Patty Poulter. Thank you for being with us. Patty's going to tell us a little bit about herself. We'll engage in a dialogue for about 30 minutes or so, and then I'll open up the floor for questions and encourage you to share your questions with Patty. And we'll also be taking questions from those who are joining us online via Zoom and Facebook Live. We'll be taking questions from them as well. And so thank you again for being here. We appreciate it very much. So I'd like to start with, before we talk about Dr. Patty Poulter, the professional, let's talk about...
It's a lot of alliteration.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I'm good at alliterations. Let's talk about Patty Poulter, the person. Maybe your origin story, where you grew up, and kind of lead us up to present day.
Sure. Happy. First of all, thank you all for being here this morning, and thank you, Jeff, for inviting me. I'm going to be honest here. When I was invited, I thought, oh, that sounds like a really cool event. I'm really busy though, it's in November, but I'll go. And there was an evening, I thought, oh, that week I already had like 4 things in the evening, but it's okay. Then it was, oh, it's at breakfast, oh, I'll attend. And then 2 weeks ago, I saw my face on social media, and I was like, oh, it's me. Because I was thinking, oh, this is great, I can go learn from somebody, and be part of a conductor event. So I wouldn't even say doubly, I'm like quadruply honored to be considered this.
We trick people that way.
Yeah. Y'all don't know what's ahead for you. You know you're listening to this. So I was actually, I'll go pretty far back, but I was born in northern Illinois, right on the Illinois-Wisconsin border in a small town called Winnebago. And no, they're not made there. It really is named after the Ho-Chunk tribe of that region. And my mom was the firstborn of Swedish immigrants. So Rockford, Illinois is where a lot of people, when they came from Sweden, there was a huge famine in Sweden, just like in Ireland. And they would come through Ellis Island or come through Nova Scotia and down, and then they would just literally put a tag on them that said Kishwaukee Street. And that was a place in Rockford, and that was where, if you were Swedish, that's where you were going. And my grandfather grew up and became a pattern maker for a furniture company. My grandmother was also Swedish and didn't speak English until she went to school, and that was very difficult for her, and this is important for me in my work today still. She was the oldest of 8. They weren't all born at the time she started school, but she at home was the funny one, the smart one, the game leader, all of those things, and she got to school and couldn't speak English and felt stupid and was treated as though she was less than. That story has always stayed with me. Now my dad is from Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, and was the oldest of 11, 10 who lived, and he got to Rockford, Illinois, because in the mid-50s, as you know, there was this huge migration because there was no work, and particularly in that northeast corner, there was just nothing there. So, but if you went north, there were factories, there was road building, it was the big push for interstates and all of those things. So he and one of his brothers, who was just about a year younger than him, came north. And they would work, there was so much work, and then they'd come back home to see mother and daddy, which you know is a very southern thing to refer to them as that. And so I still have a lot of family in Arkansas. We are now 8 generations in Arkansas. So my family roots here are deep. And I will say when I moved here, I did not know what a beautiful state it was because I had only seen the northeast corner. We went at least once, usually 2 or 3 times a year, to see Grandma and Grandpa, and that's where we were, right? We were in that little corner. So when I think of Hoxie and I think of Walnut Ridge and I think of the Lawrence County Cemetery, I know I can go there and I can just see all of these family names. One of my greats grandfathers is in a book called Arkansas Angels, which is about circuit riding preachers, and he was also a hymn writer. And so it's really cool to open up those old shake note Baptist hymnals and see hymns by him. And so that's sort of where I came from. My dad was not able to finish 6th grade. He and his brother, just younger than him, didn't finish 3rd grade. But as you know, that was a time when you could still just go get a job and make a living. I think it wasn't until the 8th of his siblings that someone graduated high school. So fast forward, I'm living in this small town. If you know small town life, we always compare how the size of our graduating class, right? You know, and did you have tractor day? And that was, okay, some of you know what tractor day is, and that's when, you know, the FFA, you get your tractor to school, right? So,
Greenbar still does that, though.
well, so does Winnebago. It makes the news every year. So I, in 2nd grade, let me back up a little, my dad was very musical. Whole family was. One of my earliest memories is standing next to my dad with my head on the guitar body. So that tells you, because he was sitting at the kitchen table. And there was this gray melamine coffee cup that he always had, and his Pall Mall cigarette, you know, and that gray melamine ashtray. But I had to be short enough, small enough that I could just stand and put my ear on the body of the guitar. Right? So very young. And he's singing about, I go a walking after midnight, right? So, and, Tennessee Waltz and Hank Williams songs. And real music. It's what I grew up with. And my mom at the sink, I started piano lessons when I was 4. I really wanted to play the piano. Our piano had no ivories on it. We got it for a quarter from the high school. And, but I loved it, right? I loved music. And so when I was in 2nd grade and I was sitting in music class, and Mrs. Ladine, we were singing, Senor Delgado was a cat. Some of you might remember that song. On a wide red roof, Delgado sat. He was there to meet a lady Delgado, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, you can do this for a living. You can be a teacher of music. And so at that point, I said, that's what I want to do. I don't know what it means to be that, but that's what I want to do. And then in 4th grade, I wanted to be an oceanographer, but I lived in the prairie, so that was a big one. And then I also saw the photo of the beautiful bust of Queen Nefertiti, who I to this day believe is the most beautiful woman in all of history. And so I wanted to be an archaeologist, and that wasn't going to work out. But this idea of being a musician never, ever left me, because that's how I knew the world. By 6th grade, I was playing organ, poorly, but for a little church, I was playing the piano, sang my first solo in church when I was 4 or 5. You know, that was just part of my life, was making music. And that was part of my identity all through school. Now, as I said, I'm the first in my family to go to school. My family, we didn't know how poor we were because a lot of people around us were just the same, right? But I do know if it wasn't for my grandma, my mom's mom, we wouldn't have always had food. Because she would bring bread from the Dale Bakery to us once a week. There were 4 of us, but my parents also raised one of my dad's sisters, so there were 5. And at any given time, there were also 1 or 2 of his brothers or sisters that had come up from Walnut Ridge to live with them to get some work. So there was always enough. There was always enough. Even if that enough was biscuits and gravy, and the gravy was made from that bacon grease on the can. So there was always enough. And there was always more than enough love. So I knew I wanted to go to college, didn't know how to do it, took the ACT, didn't know that you were supposed to put down colleges where you wanted to go. I didn't know that, nobody told me that. And not that I'm a grade monger, but I got a 35 on the ACT, you know? Nobody knew it, because I didn't send it anywhere, right? So the only, so I was at, some of you may have participated in districts and All-State and things like that, or your kids or your nieces or nephews or neighbors. And so I was a senior in high school. I had gotten into Oberlin Conservatory, I will tell you that. I'd done an audition, my teacher helped me with that. I got in, that's a private school in Ohio, and I got a $700 scholarship, and that was not going to do it. It wasn't going to happen. So I was there, and I have a really big voice. And I was there at our districts before we go to All-State, and the guest conductor stopped me at a break and he said, I heard you singing. What is it that you want to do? And I said, oh, I want to be a music teacher. But I don't know how to go to college. I don't have enough money to go to college. That was it. So I figured I'm going to go work in a factory, which I did, by the way. And he said, see me at the next break. Came to the next break, he said, sing this back. I play something and sing it back. He said, can you read this? I said, sure. Sing it. He said, how would you like to go to Eastern Illinois University? We can give you a scholarship. Now those days are over, right? But I just got a little emotional here because this man just passed away a few weeks ago. And so he said, you know, do this, and this, here's my card. And I went home and I told my parents, I said, I'm going to Eastern Illinois University. And they said, where's that? And I said, I don't know. But I'm going. And I got a full scholarship that paid all of my tuition, all of my fees, and I didn't have money for rent, but that's a whole other story about my grandma helping me with that. So I went to school. I got my degree in teaching music. I went on to get my master's in conducting. I taught in Illinois. I taught in Minnesota. I was married. I had two amazing little girls. Part of my story also that I'm not ashamed of saying is that I had several miscarriages. One of them very late term at 6 months. And so that's part of my story too. That when I finally had these two children, I was like, okay, you know, that I'm done. I'm not going through this again. These are two amazing human beings. So I'm so blessed to have them in my life. I knew at some point I wanted to get my doctorate because I really wanted to go back and be the person that I loved teaching music, loved conducting. But, and all this time I was still performing. And I paid my way, the way I paid for a lot of things in school was I played in bands. So I played bluegrass, I played, if there's an Eagles song or a Linda Ronstadt song, or Amy, I played that song a million times. I played lounge piano at this place called Reflections, which is very I had a little sticker by my tip bowl that said, request $1, request to play the song Feelings $500. And because that song just haunted me. And in fact, a few years ago I was in Cuba, and I looked down and a broken 45 was on the ground, and it was the 45 of Feelings. And I thought, this song is haunting me. It's everywhere. It's following me, right? And so, but I wanted to be a person who taught teachers. I thought that will make even a bigger difference because I believe so much in the power of music and the power of education to change lives because it had changed mine so fundamentally, but also I just knew that all the way through, as that child, I saw what was possible. I saw what was possible. And that is kind of my mantra, you know, every day getting up thinking, you know, what's possible today? What's possible? And so I continued, I got into a doctoral program at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Took my little kids, they were just 3 and 4, and they had just turned 3 that first week. And My marriage did not survive that, and that's okay, because we continue to raise these incredible young women to who they are today. And the stepmother they have is such an amazing person, and I love her deeply, and I'm so grateful that she's part of all of our lives. So life works, right? Life works. I was able to sing all around the world. I sang as part of a group called Provost, which was a seven voice ensemble that sang, this is very arcane, but music from these manuscripts from a publishing house in the 16th century out of Belgium. His name is Petrus Alamiri, and these manuscripts are so gorgeous. They are studied for their artwork. They're in museums all over. Well, we got to sing that music, and he was also a spy, and he was, there's all that. It's just a great story. But doing that, being able to sing that music, I would spend a month in France and travel then, to Germany, to Belgium to perform. And my daughter got to go with me, and this is a kid from Winnebago. It's a kid from Winnebago. That education changed my life. So, fast forward, I get my doctorate degree, I get hired back at Eastern Illinois University. And I'm teaching in the exact same room where I had my first class on how to be a teacher. And I was there 19 years. The whole time I was also a church musician. So I was a professor, I was leading the music education program, I became a department chair. In the College of Education, outside of arts, I came over there. And part of that was the dean that was there. We had worked on a lot of things that were really difficult. But I never left a meeting with him thinking, that's it, I'm done with him. I always left thinking, we accomplished something. I knew I could learn from him. And that's when it dawned on me that I'd been making choices unconsciously to put myself in places where I could learn. That I could be with people that would see what was possible in me and challenge me to do that. That they would open a door. I didn't realize that's what, I just was going through the doors, right? So then I became an associate dean. I read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes. And I had an opportunity I got called a position in Kennesaw, Georgia. And I had no idea where that was. I just, my life was where my life was. And raising my daughters and all of those things. By that point, one was married, and so Kennesaw, Georgia was right outside of Atlanta, and the university was 23,000 students when I got there, and the year I left, 5 years later, it was 38,000. So talk about growth. So I went there as the dean of the College of the Arts, which was a fascinating and wonderful experience, and got to know so many amazing people. Atlanta is just a game-changing place. But had I not said yes, and had I not, when I met that president and thought, I want to work with this person. I want to learn from this person. I said yes. And I know this story is going on long, but I do want to tell you that the personalities and incredibleness of my daughters. So mine was, I don't know, you probably all have the person in your family that theirs is the home that you go to, right? That was my house. So every other week after church on Sunday, everybody came out to the house. It was the holiday house. It was we feel like we need to, can we come out soon? Can we come out and hike? Mine was the home. So I took my daughters out for coffee and I said, hey, if I take this job, you won't have that anymore. What do we think about this? What do we think? So my daughter Corey, who's my older daughter, who has been in banking and law and is now exactly where she needs to be, which is she's a therapist, child therapist, had this whole list. She said, well, I've been thinking about it. She takes out this list, and it's in columns, and it's like, things I can help you with, things I cannot help you with. Like, I will not move you. Pros to you doing this, cons to you. She'd written it all, and she talked for like 45 minutes, and Andy and I are just listening, and it's all very logical, and she's standing up for herself. And then go to Andy. Andy's an artist, and he's a sculptor, and and Annie said, no list. She goes, what Corey said, and I said, no. You have to weigh in on this. You are part of this equation. You are part of this story, this decision. And she said, well, here's what I think. If you do this, and if it's important to you, what will your legacy be? Tell me what you will and won't do,
Give me your list.
Yeah, where's the list, right? But you guys, those were both amazing approaches, right? But what do you want your legacy to be? My legacy, I hope, is that every place I go, I make it better. And that every place I go, I open doors for other people, and I see what's possible in them. So I was there for 5 years. I had met Houston Davis twice. He was the vice chancellor of the University System of Georgia, essentially the provost of the whole state. And so we met at one meeting, literally, it's nice to meet you. And then he was on our campus at Kennesaw State for a few months as an interim president. So we went and had a 30-minute meeting with each of the deans. And that was the only time, because there were other things. I just say that was a sign that my college was good, because he had other things to deal with. But I knew him to be a person of incredible integrity and vision. I'd seen that working in that system. So I was kind of following him on social media and saying, this place seems pretty awesome. So when this job came open, at the last minute, I was a finalist for a presidency in Boston. And I withdrew when I found out some things about the financials. I'm not doing that. You don't have a plan for this? I'm not stepping into that. Withdrew. Got a call from this search firm, and they said, hey, your name keeps, you've been nominated by people, not by the president. You've been nominated for this position. It closes Monday. This was Thursday. He said, are you going to apply? And I said, yep, I will. Got it in. That was in, I don't know, February. And by April, I was hearing it said yes to the position. And I would never have bet. It's a game changer. So that's my story.
Wow. Let's talk about your role in this together.
Okay. What about my role?
Oh,
what is that? Well, I am, my official title is Provost and Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs. So those used to be two separate positions in a lot of places. A provost is the person that sets the academic vision, is really thinking on those sides of things. And then the vice president side is the person, you have to think about, well, how do we make it happen? What are the nuts and bolts, the financing side? And so being the executive vice president of the institution means that when the president is sort of like first runner-up, in a beauty pageant, when the president is unable to do, if he's out of the country, then the executive vice president is in charge. It's so it is a position of vast responsibility. Every day is a new day, but I'll give you a quick rundown of everything that falls under the umbrella of academic affairs at UCA. So it's every one of the academic colleges, every academic department, the graduate school, the honors college, the library, Reynolds Performance Hall, Channel 6, the Echo, the Scroll, Slant, every publication, enrollment management, which is admissions, registrar, financial aid, academic advising, Office of Student Success, which is all peer coaching, peer tutoring, residential colleges, learning communities, outreach and community engagement, and I feel like International Center for Global Learning and Engagement, International Education, so study abroad, study away, all international students, and the Center for Chinese Language and Culture, the Long Gallery, so lots of stuff. So that's all under academic affairs. So our budget is about Around about $88 million.
So tell us about your approach to leadership.
Well, some of my leadership team are in the room, but I think it's very collaborative. I try to be strategic in terms of knowing as much as I can before making a decision, but I am not hesitant to make a decision. When we had our first meeting with the Council of Deans, one of the things I said is, we are the academic leadership of this institution. We are. And I count on each of you to be the storytellers, the advocates, the engaged leaders of what this institution will be. We have to do that. And please trust me as we learn to know each other, that if I say no to something, it's with good reason. But I want to be a person that says, yes, we can try that. I think I will say this, people come, my immediate team does not hesitate to come to me and to say, I need advice. And that's huge, because one of my mentors said, never go to your boss and ask for advice unless you're willing to do what they say. Right? That's true. So that to me is an indicator of trust. I'm looking at but they can also say, hey, I just want to run something by you. Or just hear me out on this, or I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm also a leader that doesn't like surprises. But that also, I think, comes with building trust, because people have to be able to tell you things that they think aren't good, but you need to know it, and they have to trust that you're going to receive that. I have had bosses, which I would not consider these individuals leaders, who you never knew who you were going to get. And that were volatile, or they tried to manage by shaming. Well, for what you're doing, we could pay some, that is not my way. And I remember quitting a job once, and because I got that kind of feedback, and I just had a miscarriage, and I was working as a youth minister at the time, and missed a Sunday sledding event. I was youth minister for 300 junior high kids. Only in Minnesota can you have a mega church, it's a Lutheran church. So it was, it's true, like 10,000 members, and that was Saturday, Friday night and Saturday that I had miscarriage, so I didn't go sledding on Sunday with these kids, and I didn't show up to church, one of the 5 services every Sunday. So Monday at staff meeting, he started berating me, and I said, after the meeting, I went into his office and said, you know what, you're right, I quit. And his response was, oh no, I don't want you to quit. I was just trying to light a fire under you. And I said, you know what? You are a person of faith, and you are an incredible speaker. You are not a good manager. Snap. That's right. And so that to me, that is not the kind of leader I am.
Have there been any leadership failures in your past?
Leadership failures, absolutely. Absolutely. Not getting the whole story. So believing this part of the story and taking that as truth. Because I assumed the behaviors of this other side of things had evidenced themselves in the past in a way that I could believe what they were saying. But it was not true. And you have to, every single time, not, Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. But that also does not, she can also say, but continue to exhibit grace to that person. And it is a leadership failure to not make sure you know everything. So that was wrong on my part.
What's the toughest thing about your job today?
Personnel.
Tell us about that.
Personnel and funding. Well, wait, now the list is just. Personnel, because people are hurting right now. People are tired. People want to do right by what they love to do, and we are heading into 24 months of this pandemic. We keep thinking 18 months, but that's not true. We were talking in a meeting yesterday that it was early January of 2020 that we first started tracking and making decisions about, okay, we were going to send this group of people to China, we can't do that. So people are just, that's difficult. And we also have to remember that people are mourning. We've lost over 250 people to COVID just in Faulkner County. And I talked about my family going back 8 generations here. People here have deep roots in Arkansas, and their families are widespread, so it's not just confined to here. So I think that's really difficult. Funding is difficult only because we're really, well, you've been to the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Things just cost more. A living wage costs more. We can't pass those costs on to students if we can help it at all. And then the number one joy, but also ongoing challenge, is how to help students succeed. But I think the toughest part is helping people continue to feel supported and seen.
Before he passed away, Harvard business professor Clayton Christensen predicted difficulty ahead in the next 10 to 15 years for higher education.
Yes,
What do you see? How will higher education continue to have its impact on folks like you and me that didn't just change our lives, it changed our family trees? What has to change in higher education in the future for that to continue to be such a strong force?
That's a great question. I think a couple of things we need to do is expand our notion about who belongs in higher ed. And we must start earlier with intentionality, with helping people envision themselves in higher education. I also think we need, because if you cannot envision yourself and envision the outcomes of your decisions and actions, you will engage in risky behavior. And risky behavior includes just making a poor decision someplace, right? So, and that risky behavior may be deciding to drop out of school, or, the other thing we need to expand our embracing of the importance of all kinds of post-secondary education. That includes trade school, that includes community college. That I love that I went to a 4-year school and was able to go on. That was my path. But that does not mean it is better than a community college education, a trade school education, a post-secondary certificate. Allison Rich is here that runs the Arkansas the Coding Academy. Those are game changers. We need to expand that. We also need to have, I believe, more support for our public school teachers to help keep them in the field and keep them supported so that they can continue to make a difference in children's lives. And then I also think we need to do, this feeds directly to higher ed, we have to do everything we can to improve health and well-being of our citizenry, and to break generational poverty.
Open up the floor for questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm amazed how your story is almost like my mother's, that you chose to go to school, which I didn't choose to go to school. I was made to go to school, and I really appreciate that game-changing person in the family. You know, I'm Nigerian. I was born in England and I live in Greenbrier, Arkansas. So here's what I'm asking is, I noticed in Arkansas, for example, we have the UAMS, which is supposed to train physicians, but they're training physicians to be specialists in a place where it's mainly rural. So my question is, how do we, in the higher education, provide the type of support for people in Arkansas to appreciate the beauty of the state? Because I see, I'm like, how can you have an organization train people to leave the very roots where people need them the most? How can you just change? I live in Greenbrier, I'm the 1%. And people ask me, why do I live there? I say, because it's peaceful, because I get to know people. I mean, I was raised in the city in Nigeria, Lagos. Lagos is like Miami and everything rolled in one. There are 20 million people there. When I was a kid, there were like probably 10. So my question is, how do we, in higher education in Arkansas, help people understand that it's okay to live in Greenbrier, to live in Walnut Ridge, to live in Hoxie, and still be normal, so that we can make the resources, because Walmart, which is on Forbes, is from Arkansas. Am I making sense at all?
Absolutely. So, beautiful question. And what's your name?
My name is Folake Oluoku.
Folake, thank you for your question. And thank you for saying that my story reminds you of your mother's story. That means a lot. Speaking of which, this is when I was still coloring my hair. Beautiful question about how do we help people understand it's good to stay. It's good to go back to where you're from and help make a difference. We have a couple of folks here from our Integrated Health Sciences building. We have an interprofessional teaching center there. Just this week, I had a meeting with a representative from Congressman Hill's office talking about rural health. Exactly that. How do we help people say, I want to go back to where I came from and help build that up? I think it's a many-pronged approach that I do think UCA is trying to address. And it's going to take time. I mentioned supporting teachers. We have to help teachers from the communities where they are. Most people want to teach within 30 miles of where they grew up. That's the national average. But those schools are underfunded, and they get there and they get burnt out and they leave. Right? So that happens. So we're working in our College of Education on trying to create some programs where we've just earned a planning grant of $100,000 from Forward Arkansas, where this will help us write a grant for $3 million that will help us create support systems for teachers in rural areas in Arkansas. Part of that is we're also working with the chambers of commerce in those towns, saying, what do you need? What economic drivers do we need? What was here that's no longer here? What can we do that can be done remotely that you can still live here? The infrastructure is bad. We don't have internet here. This is something else I spoke with Congressman Hill's office about, is we know we're addressing that. So then that connects immediately to rural health and telehealth. And there are laws that say if there's not a physician present in this clinic area or connected, that you can't have it. We're saying, wait a minute. I've been here 4 years and I've never seen my primary physician. I've always seen my APRN, and that person is amazing. That person is amazing, right? So how can we help set up complete circles of care in rural areas, whether it's through some telehealth, through setting up clinics that have an APRN, physical therapist, and nutritionist, and addiction counselor? How can we set these up in rural areas that place value on it rather than this is something you need to go do to pay back your loans, right? Or this is the subject of some rom-com where the fish out of water doctor has to go to the backwoods to, I mean, make it meaningful, valued work. And that means that once the person gets there, you don't forget they're there. And so those are some of my first thoughts on that, but these are areas. A few years ago, we brought some folks into UCA and they met with 10 or 11 different groups over the course of one day. It was well over 100 people, and the first question they were asked to do was to close their eyes and envision what UCA will be doing in 5 years. And I'd like you to do that, right? Just close your eyes. What could UCA be doing in 5 years? Okay, I'm going to interrupt your dreaming, but don't lose it. The number one thing that came out from all of those meetings was that UCA would be improving the health and well-being of our Kansans. The number one thing, it didn't matter what field people were from, that it was about economic agency, it was about health, it's about education. The next one was literacy of all kinds. Financial literacy, health literacy, cultural literacy, verbal written literacy. So we've taken that on as our grand challenge to improve the health and well-being of our Kansans. And that means educating people to stay and build Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else? And I'm going to pose you a final question.
Okay.
Actually, it's a statement. Give us your best leadership nugget of all your collective years of experience. What would you leave us with, or the folks that are watching many times your students, what would you leave us with from perspective of your best leadership, advice, guidance, nugget, what have you?
It's more than a nugget, maybe it's a necklace of nuggets.
Cluster.
People matter. You can always learn from everyone you meet. And a line from a Mary Oliver poem, I don't want to go through life just having not been part. So be in the now, be in the moment, see the person in front of you. So
Thank you for your service to our community and to our university. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being with us today.
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.